New president, I have felt liberated in the last few weeks, so much so that I almost didn't wear a sport coat for the show today because I was like, it's a new day and I feel unburdened in some way. I almost just came to the set in my shirt. I wonder if that is the way lots of people are feeling right now as Joe Biden takes the reins and directs us into the future. Karen, what's your reaction?
I think a lot of people feel that way, but for better or worse, everybody doesn't feel that way. And I think that we have to understand that there's still a lot of unhappy and dissatisfied people, both with the election, as with the decisions that are starting to come out of the White House. And I don't think that those things can or are going to truly try to find some common ground. We have to address those issues.
Yeah. Greg, what do you make of the early decisions that we've seen come out of the Biden administration? Certainly different. Is it a better direction?
For sure. I mean, for everything from lifting or immediately ending this no tolerance policy for detaining people at the border and separating the families, that ended, to his whole removal or reversing the Trump administration's policy of ending programs within the federal government that address systemic racism, racial profiling, things of that nature. And so he's been moving along quite well, I think, on delivering on his campaign promises and for giving us some hope. I mean, when Trump was doing things like saying, well, we're not going to teach people how to deal with folks from different races in the federal government anymore. That was heartbreaking. It was like, really? You really don't want to do that? I mean, their whole idea of saying that racism is just sort of normal and you just sort of have to accept it. And we would hear that when Trump would say, I'm the least racist person that you know, which would imply that everybody that you know, including yourself, are somehow racist, and they've acted from that standpoint, I think, a lot with his executive orders and the moves that he's made.
Kerry Jackson, you are our resident conservative. What's your reaction to the early days of Biden and the end of Trump?
I'm not sure that we're at the end of Trump yet. The fact that 45 out of the 50 senators have indicated that they plan to not hold him responsible for the insurrection at the Capitol, and that there are still 74 million Americans who feel that Donald Trump is still their God. We're not at the end of Trump. He lost the election. He's not in the White House. That's fine. Joe Biden will probably wind up being a much better figurehead as a president. The inauguration, there was a lot of symbolism there that we're going in a brand new direction, that our country has a lot of diversity. And I'm glad that they put on a terrific production with a lot of symbolism. Karen doesn't like symbolism, but it was an entire day of nothing but symbols. And I doubt that we're going to see a whole bunch of, I doubt that there's going to be a sea change in terms of real policy in the next 4 years. Joe Biden he's been there for a very long time. He's going to continue to try and work with old school Republicans that have been there for a very long time. I don't really think that a lot is going to change, but I'm very glad that Donald Trump no longer occupies the White House.
Brandon, what have you thought of the things that we've seen Joe Biden do in these first few weeks?
Well, let me start here. I think, when we talk about symbolism, I actually have to agree. We need to get past symbolism and start talking about substance when we're talking about living still in the age of COVID-19. That is still alive and well. I'm kind of torn. I mean, on the one end, I think we've got through the antics and some of the issues of not being able to govern with the former president. But now it's the Biden show. And the reality is Joe Biden is, let's call it what it is. He's coming in with a Democratic majority. He's coming in with the Senate. He's coming in with the House. So no longer can he say or blame 45. This is the Joe Biden show. I'm kind of torn because there are some things that, just recently getting and ending the contract with private prisons. That's something that when we talk about prison reform, I can get behind as a conservative. My concerns are the $4 billion in aid that he wants to now send to Mexico, where literally our Congressman Huizenga is saying, wait a minute, Why are we giving other countries and nations money, one, who don't like us, but two, at a time when the American small business owner is struggling? So those are the decisions that I think this president has to make. Is not only is this the Joe Biden show, but Joe Biden, I think his biggest challenge, ironically, is not going to be Republicans. It's going to be, does he remain a centrist or does he cater to the progressive side, who is getting and growing and becoming stronger in his party?
Yeah, you think Mexico doesn't like the United States? They're our second largest.
I'm talking about Mexico and also Iran.
Yeah, Mexico and Iran aren't in the same category in terms of how we deal with them. Again, Mexico's our second largest trading partner and a border country.
The reality is this. But Steve, the reality is this: we've got $4 billion when you talk about the crumbling infrastructure in our own nation. When we talk about the fact that Godiva and companies that we've known for years are literally packing up and closing up. We've got a crisis in this country. Not to mention some folks who have taken the vaccine. And we'll talk about this later. We don't know if that vaccine is actually going to help or hurt. So, I mean, we've got so many issues in this country that right now we've got past the Trump antics. It's time for the president to govern.